From an ancient mask with extraterrestrial roots to a Californian sphinx and an inexplicable underwater giant, the past truly holds many unsolved mysteries. While many archaeological discoveries have already helped to shed some light on the historical darkness, others only raise more questions. And indeed, some people are using these mysterious finds as an opportunity to substantiate an almost unbelievable theory. In a certain scene, the peoples of antiquity are namely suspected of having been regularly visited by aliens. According to this theory, the rise of human civilization was made possible by the influence of extraterrestrial guests. And lo and behold, the mysterious artifact that recently appeared on the coast of Florida really isn't from this world. Well, at least this is true of the material that hides the ancient death mask. It contains the extremely rare iridium, which is mainly found in meteorites. Discovered in Melbourne Beach, experts believe that the mysterious mask fragment comes from the ranks of an unknown pre-Inca civilization from ancient Peru. And the age of the artifact is also intriguing. Former MIT professor Mike Torres states that it is between 10 and 12,000 years old. The significance of the find is correspondingly high. After all, its production required in-depth knowledge of metalworking. In fact, the discovery represents some of the earliest evidence of man's ability to process metal and use iridium. While this finding could revolutionize our understanding of ancient Peruvian cultures, the mask also raises a pressing question. How did the artifact end up on a Florida beach in the first place? Well, most likely the archaeological treasure was stolen by Spanish grave robbers many centuries ago. Since the mask contains the precious iridium, it was most likely in an important or even royal tomb. After the robbery, it was probably intended to be transferred to Spain, but for some unknown reason, it went astray. The Sea of Galilee hides an ancient secret. The Sea of Galilee is well known in Christian circles. After all, Jesus performed several miracles here. From walking on water to calming the storm, the huge body of water in the north of Israel holds a prominent position in Christianity. But the Sea of Galilee is also extremely interesting from an archaeological perspective. After all, it hides one of the greatest historical mysteries of all. Researchers once came across a monumental stone structure at the bottom of the lake that could not be more mysterious. While the cone-shaped structure is made up of unhewn basalt stones, it weighs an estimated 60,000 tons, so it's heavier than most modern warships. With a height of almost 10 meters and a diameter of around 70 meters, archaeologists are still puzzling over the original purpose of the underwater giant. Regarding its age, experts point to several other megalithic structures nearby that were erected over 4,000 years ago. It is therefore reasonable to assume that the sunken Colossus was also built during this period. If this dating is correct, the structure was once located near a city that experts call Bet Yera or Khirbet Kerak. This was one of the most powerful and heavily fortified cities in the region, with up to 5,000 inhabitants. The appearance of the underwater structure suggests that we are dealing with a huge burial complex, but further investigations are needed to clarify this. What is a sphinx doing in California? Is this proof that everything in our history books is wrong? Indisputable proof that the ancient Egyptians traveled the entire world and were far more advanced than historians tell us? How else can you explain the discovery of a 140-kilo sphinx head in the dunes of Santa Barbara County, California? Well, quite simply, the artifact did not come from the deserts of ancient Egypt, but from a film set. According to this, the prop was used in the monumental film The Ten Commandments from 1923. At a time when terms such as CGI were still foreign words, 300 set builders used 11,000 kilograms of nails and 250 tons of plaster to create a 12-story high and 245-meter wide backdrop. The film set included a colossal gate, imposing pharaoh statues, and 21 sphinxes made of plaster. However, after filming, director Cecil B. DeMille ordered the huge creations to be buried in the dunes. It is not entirely clear what this strange decision was all about. Perhaps the budget was no longer sufficient to dismantle and relocate the set. On the other hand, DeMille was also regarded as an eccentric control freak who might not have been able to stand his set being reused by another director. Why is this mummy lying like a fetus? Archaeologists have recorded an extremely strange discovery in Cajamarquilla, Peru, a 1,000-year-old mummy lying in the position of a fetus and tied up with a rope. And before we get the wrong idea, the deceased did not die in the womb at all, but was between 18 and 22 years old at the time of his death. Was this position possibly intended to humiliate the young man beyond death? Well, that's not exactly likely, as the underground grave also contained the remains of a dog, a guinea pig, as well as corn and other vegetables. The deceased could have been the son of a wealthy merchant. It is very likely that his relatives occasionally visited the grave to make new offerings. The ancient Greeks played with bones. What small plastic figures and dice are today, bones were thousands of years ago. Archaeologists in the Bet Guvrin Marissa National Park in Israel came across an ancient game set of a somewhat different kind. Used by the ancient Greeks around 2,300 years ago, the bones were not used for amusing pastimes. No, they were supposed to predict the future. The fortune-telling game was called astragaloi, which means nothing other than knuckles. And as the name suggests, the tokens were made from the ankle or hock bones of animals such as goats or sheep. Once the small bones had been thrown, the result had to be read out by dice oracles. In detail, the tokens contained inscriptions of Greek gods such as Aphrodite, Eros, and Hermes. Other pieces featured terms such as robber, stop, and you're burnt. What may sound like an ancient superstition at first glance actually reveals a lot about the reality of life in antiquity. People in need tried to seek help from outside, not only in this world, but also in the magical world of the afterlife. This murder has been unsolved for 10,000 years. Hollywood, the Walk of Fame, the mysterious LaBrea woman who was murdered more than 10,000 years ago. Los Angeles truly has many exciting attractions to offer. Discovered in 1914 in the eponymous La Brea tar pits, the woman was probably between 18 and 25 years old at the time of her death. In fact, these are the only human remains that have ever been found in the asphalt-filled pits. The researchers estimate that the La Brea woman was around 150 meters tall, and judging by her dental samples, she ingested a lot of stone meal in her diet. Furthermore, analysis revealed that her skull was fractured. The brutal blow to the head may have killed her instantly. In 2009, Californian forensic scientist Melissa Cooper created a facial reconstruction based on her skull. But this immediately led to a controversial debate about its display and ethical questions about the museum's reasons for hiding the La Brea woman. How did the Iron Age Scots build these skyscrapers? Have you ever heard of the Scottish Brochs? Although these structures are one of the greatest mysteries of Scotland's history, they are still rather unknown to the general public. In detail, we are dealing here with round, windowless towers that followed the so-called roundhouses. According to our current state of knowledge, the inhabitants began to build these peculiar structures around 400 BC. But why did they do it in the first place? Well, due to their imposing appearance, researchers long assumed that the Brochs served as stone shelters or seats of power. However, it is now more likely that they were used as residences by the landowning population. What is certain is that the creation of the towers required complex architectural knowledge. As a result, the Brochs had diameters of 10 to 30 meters, and some of them rose 15 meters into the air. This occult group gives you goosebumps. What horrific events must have taken place for a site to be inscribed with the following inscription: "It is unlawful to boil a head here." Found in an excavation site in the Ptolemaic Roman port city of Berenice, this discovery gives us a rare insight into the goings-on of a mysterious group known as the Blemiers, who apparently also worshipped the moon god Chons. In detail, the archaeologists discovered the remains of headless falcons. The boiling of falcon heads was an integral part of the Blemiers' sacred sacrificial rituals. The site of this animal sanctuary, the so-called Northern Complex, consists of a series of different buildings and contains important clues about the culture and beliefs of the ancient Nubian nomadic tribe. As the ancient sources are extremely sparse, we still know very little about the everyday life and religious beliefs of this group. However, the inscription on the discovered shrine could show that the Blimiers respected the traditions of the inhabitants of the Pharaonic Empire and developed practices that paid homage to the ancient Egyptian god Chons. This is also supported by the design of the so-called Falcon Shrine, which is adorned with Egyptian decorative elements. However, the other finds show that the sacrifice of falcons only made up a fraction of the practices. The researchers found the remains of over 730 animals here. In addition to fish and birds, these also included mammals such as pigs, donkeys, goats, and cattle. Can't wait to find out more about the most exciting archaeological discoveries of all time? Then press subscribe now and look forward to many more videos on this exciting topic.